This is episode 14 with the special guest, Razi Berry. Welcome to My Kid Cures Cancer. My name is Ryan Sternagel, former regular guy turned dadcologist, cancer coach, and health advocate. Each week we'll talk to a new expert on a particular aspect of beating cancer or human optimization to bring you one step closer on your path to true health. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's dive into this valuable, life-saving information which you're not going to hear about in a mainstream hospital. All right, everyone, with all the debate on which metabolic approach to cancer is best and what the must-have supplements and must-do therapies are, do we sometimes get so caught up in the details that we miss the bigger picture? I know I do, which is why today's guest was a breath of fresh air for me, as I'm sure she will be for you. Razi Berry, founder and publisher of Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, ndnr.com, and Naturopath, thenatpath.com, has spent the last decade as a natural medicine advocate and marketing whiz. She has galvanized and supported the naturopathic community, bringing a higher quality of healthcare to millions of Americans through her publications. A self-proclaimed health food junkie and a mother of two, she loves all things nature, is obsessed with organic gardening, growing fruit trees, not easy in Phoenix, laughing until she snorts, and homeschooling. She is a little bit crunchy, and yes, that is her real name. Okay, quicker intro this time as it's late and I still need to pack to leave town for the weekend for my cousin's wedding, so I'm going to skip summarizing what we talked about, but trust me, it's really good. And if you have been down in the nitty-gritty researching cancer and health for very long at all I will say is you really do need to listen. That being said, we're so happy you stopped by My Kid Cures Cancer, where it is our goal to bring all sides of the discussion on how to heal cancer and be truly healthy to the same table to give you one place to tune into for the most well-rounded perspective possible. This is a show for people going through cancer, by people going through cancer, inspired by my wife Teddy and I's experience with childhood cancer, bringing our son Ryder back from his stage 4 cancer diagnosis to the happy, healthy little boy he is today. If you aren't dealing with cancer and want to keep it that way, I like to think this show will be very helpful to you as well. We'll get to Razi's interview in a minute, but first you need to know a couple things, starting with the fact that this show is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Only one announcement for the week, but we're pretty excited about it, and that is My Kid Cures Cancer is now on Instagram. We get asked so much about what Ryder and his sister Channing eat day to day, how we make our home a healing home, our favorite healthy activities for the whole family, and all that stuff we've always wanted to show you guys more of, and this seemed like a great way to do it. So check it out. Follow us on there if you're looking for healthy inspiration along those lines. Teddy's been posting up a storm, and it's been really neat getting to share everything we do in a different sort of way. So there's that for you. Of course, I do want to mention the coaching program. If you are having trouble sorting through all the conflicting information or need help prioritizing what's most important, and especially if you're dealing with all of this for your kid, trying to figure out how to make it all work in that situation, please let us walk you through it and get you up and running faster than we did. And notice I called it a program, not a call. When we were getting started, we paid a lot of people a lot of money to talk to each of them one time, and I really don't know how much we got out of any of it looking back on everything. We're talking here about weekly calls and messaging throughout the week so we can really dive into every aspect with you and you can feel ultra confident about your game plan. The details for all of that are right on the Connect page of the website, the address to which is simply mykidcurescancer.com/connect. All right. With that, let's get to the interview with Razi Berry. Welcome back, everyone, to My Kid Cures Cancer. We have with us today Razi Berry. Razi, thank you so much for coming on, and I just want to say first and foremost that absolutely love what you're doing. There's, so many, like we were just talking about, so many disparate concepts of, health information to really put together when you're digging into all this stuff. And you've done such a good job of bringing everyone together, both from the, the layman patient side of things and the naturopathic professional side of things. And I'm rambling because I'm just so impressed with what you're doing, but thank you for what you're doing, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks, Ryan. Thank you so much for that generosity right there. And, I think that my ability to bring people in comes from the fact that I was a patient as well. And while I want to share with your listeners that cancer was not the issue for me, I still look from a naturopathic perspective of either health or dis-ease. So whether it's fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome, as it was in my case, or whether it's cancer or whether it's an autoimmune disease, it's really a state of dis-ease. And our bodies are naturally designed to thrive and heal and maintain a sense of homeostasis. And so I think that, in some ways it's great to keep people in a certain disease concept together, but also, human pain and suffering, we all kind of are in it together.
Beautifully spoken. I couldn't agree more with all of that. So I know, I've heard your backstory before, and you almost have like two stories of healing, one from early childhood and then another from early adulthood. Given the fact we've got a lot of parents going through some pretty tough times that are listening to this show, I'd love to even dig back to the first one, because I think
Okay.
that one's pretty neat, and then we can, and then I'd obviously love to hear about how your the natural path and naturopathic doctor news and reviews came to be as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, so when I was about 14 years old, I got an eating disorder. It's common now in adolescence, but in my school, I remember being the only person with really that problem. And I'll go into detail about that, but really, eating disorders are treated as a psychological problem. But what I really think it was is I'm a firm believer in the gut being our second brain and the gut brain axis. And we know that 90% of neurotransmitters like serotonin are produced in the gut. Um, and so the host cell and our microbiome sort of talk to each other to produce these neurotransmitters that affect our mood and other hormones, even our hormones and that relate to blood sugar and hunger and satiety. They're all hormones. So I really think my eating disorder was a result of malnutrition. It became this fad to be vegan, and I'm not saying it's bad to be vegan. I'm sure many listeners, and especially people going through cancer, many might be vegan. But for me, a girl going through at puberty, where your body is really changing and growing quickly, for my personal blood type and such, I think it wasn't really the healthiest option. But regardless, I ended up with anorexia nervosa, and I was in the hospital because my heart was failing because of it. And I was raised Catholic, and it was so dire that the priests had to come in and perform last rite ceremony, which is the last sacrament you receive before death. So it was really grim, and nothing they could do, none of the talking, the therapy, trying to force me to eat, the hospital food, nothing was helping. And then I had a near-death experience. So I won't go into like all the details because that would probably take an entire episode. But I remember at one point I was up above myself looking down at my mom and my 4-year-old at the time brother. He was actually saying goodbye to me in the hospital. And I was looking down on them from above and from my doctor. And the doctor was saying, basically, she's doing this to herself. She's doing this to herself. And I remember feeling this intense shame, um, just feeling of shame, and I just I didn't want to die, of course, but I remember just feeling like I wanted to get away from that feeling of shame. And then suddenly I was just in another place, and it was completely surrounded by love, the love of God, of our Creator, the love of just like love was just everything that we are. And again, without going too far into that, I just knew it was beaming through every cell in my body. The experience was almost as if I was in the middle of a dewdrop and the sun was beaming from every direction. And all the message I was getting is that healing comes from inside of you. And when I came back to my body, I was healed, Ryan. I didn't have heart failure anymore. I didn't have the eating issues anymore. It was like a sudden cure. And we didn't talk a lot about it because, we were Catholic and it sounded so new age, but the doctor and the nurses knew and nobody could really understand that. But what that did for me, besides, heal me, is it made me, again, really understand, which is one of the principles of naturopathic medicine I found later on that we'll talk about, is that we all living things have this innate vital force inside of us. I believe that comes from God, and I believe God is pure love. But you can call that what you want, energy, the universe. I mean, I think a rose by any other name is still a rose. And it made me realize that it's not so much what people do to you or hand to you or give to you that causes healing. We all have our own soul journey. But with regard to the physical body, a lot of healing really comes from within. It's funny because I was reading a study just last night about placebo. And there's a lot of studies on placebo. And this one I was researching for my Love is Medicine group and was talking about heartbreak, which is, it's not a fatal disease, but it's extremely painful. And psychologists and doctors really don't know how to help people through it, right? It's something that in that way, it's a lot like diseases like cancer because it's such a human experience of pain and grief. And what the research was showing is that placebo, just believing that you can do something to heal your heartbreak, actually does heal the heartbreak. So just to kind of tie in, we were talking offline a little bit about energy healing, and I think that the idea of placebo is testament to the fact that healing does really come from within us. What do you think?
Yeah, no, it's two concepts there you touched on. I wish, the whole, I don't know, the power is within type concept, and the power is given to us by the divine and all that could be a little more accepted by, quote unquote traditional religion, because I think that would, answer a lot of questions for a lot of people and really, really help them with just getting into their faith or whatnot a little more than they might. And then it also into the medical world as well. And it's, conventional, of course, but then even, on the naturopathic side, I think we get so wrapped up into, what supplement is going to do what and so on and so forth that we kind of miss the forest for the trees sometimes. So I think that's, really important to keep in mind.
This particular study, if I may, for one more minute here,
Please.
the researchers were saying that, we're realizing that what's actually, because, they were, talking about antidepressants and other things they'd give people who were going through grieving of heartbreak, that they were saying it really matters less what's inside the pill than the person's expectation. So the question, and I don't have the answer to it, is, does that apply to chemotherapy? Does that apply to supplements? Does that apply to acupuncture? How much of it is what the person is believing inside themselves? I mean, let's take a biblical story. When Jesus put the mud on the blind man's eyes, was it the mud itself, some like active mineral in the mud? No. It was probably that man's deep belief and understanding of what he was being told, like you're healed. And so again, I don't have all those answers, but they're beautiful stories to ponder.
Yeah, no, just the power of placebo. It's, all the double blind studies have to do so much to protect against placebo that,
Yeah.
you will start to wonder, well, should we be looking more at all this other stuff they're studying, or if placebo is that powerful, should we just go ahead and look at the placebo a little more? So yeah, it's fascinating. So yeah, the near death experience, has that, has that shaped kind of how you've gone through the rest of your life, how you look at, I don't know, just how you perceive different situations and that sort of thing? And I'm sure it has.
It definitely has. I mean, I'm still human living in this earth, right? Living on earth. So it didn't make me feel like I was invincible or anything, but it did make me realize that we have so much more power is the really trendy word right now, personal power. We have a lot more control over our experience than we realize. And it also made me want to really understand how my body works, and to really, now as a parent, to really teach my children that. For instance, when a child learns exactly what happens when they put food in their mouth, how you start digesting it, like the miracle of like the saliva in your mouth starting to break down, something that comes from the earth. You put it inside your body breaks it down, it's assimilated through this amazing machinery, these electrical impulses, and we're not plugged into anything except for our bare feet on the earth and the sun above us, right? That creates almost like this battery of energy, and how that very food we eat that has been nurtured by the sun and the earth assimilates into our bloodstream and becomes our very cells of who we are. And when we really sit in that for a moment, it's easier to make healthy choices, and it's harder to make unhealthy choices. And so that is the gift that I think I most received from the near-death experience, really feeling just the beauty of that miracle of what our life is, and how we're so interdependent with the earth around us, and our spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the more you can kind of plug into that mind frame, I think the better off we're going to be. And it's sad that we're not exposed to the earth more often, and we're told to stay out of the sun, and just more and more disconnected with just the notion in general of what our food actually does for us, and the fact that it's becoming us, and it's giving us these, like you said, breaking down into the smallest. What's the word I'm looking for? It's really all energy. Like that got brought up at a couple times at the conference we were both just at together. So it's like I was telling you just before. It's hard. I kind of get it, but it's hard for me to articulate. And I think you do a much better job of it than I ever could. So that's why I'm glad you have me on the show. So I know you had you had all that, then you kind of went back to, well, not back to normal life, but went on with life, and then faced some challenges later on, and that's kind of what was the catalyst for what you're up to these days.
Yeah. So I was in my mid-20s, and I was, just living my life, working. I had a great career. I was making really great income, and everything was great. And then I suddenly became just really sick with chronic. I later found out it was chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, but 15 or so years ago, nobody really believed or understood, at least in conventional medicine, those diagnoses. And it's funny because they just didn't really accept fibromyalgia until they started developing drugs for it, which I found very ironic, right? So, I was having just terrible pain and fatigue, and I think that you've heard some of my other interviews where at my lowest point of the pain, I was crawling across the bathroom floor. My hormones were so I couldn't just walk across my apartment. I had to crawl. My body hurt so bad. And I was inflamed and my hormones were off. And I just kept getting prescribed all these terrible medications that made things worse, made my hair start falling out, gave me more headaches, upset my digestion more. And I went to some really prestigious clinics. And, people looked at it so compartmentalized. Nobody looked at everything as a whole picture. They would look at my headaches and check my brain for MS, or they would look at my digestion and check for like Crohn's disease, but they didn't really connect any dots, and they didn't have anything to offer except for antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, and sleeping pills, really, pain pills. So I think it was luckily because of my prior experience with the near-death experience, I wanted something more than that. And when a doctor told me that I should go on disability, they had someone in their office that would help me with that paperwork. Ryan, I was devastated by that. I mean, I was 25 years old, and here I'm sitting in someone's office feeling sick every day, and they're telling me to go on disability. And I didn't want to just, go home and sit on the couch and get a check every month. I wanted to live my life. So I decided to become my own, detective, the CEO of my own health. I like to tell people that you can hire your doctor, you can hire your health coach, you can hire your nutritionist, hire your personal trainer, but you are the CEO. You have to know more about your health than anybody else does. So I went on that journey. It led me to naturopathic medicine, naturopathic doctors, and that just changed everything. I was looked at as a whole person. My emotions and my work experience and my relationships and my sleep patterns, everything was looked at in a very connected way. And because of that, I healed. It wasn't overnight, but I healed. And, I'm not on any pain medications. I was told by a doctor that I would never have children. I have two beautiful girls now that were conceived naturally. And so that was such a transformative experience for me. And the paradigm of naturopathic medicine, which hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to talk about those principles, were so unique to any other physician or method of healing that I had come across, that I just fell in love with it. And I became evangelical. It's like when you see a life-changing movie or hear a life-changing podcast or anything, or you find God, you just want to tell everyone, you want to share it with everyone. And that's what happened to me. And I started the journal, Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, because the naturopathic medical profession is small, and it didn't have, a lot of national support. So I wanted to create a journal where doctors could share case studies with each other, because real life and real healing does not happen in a test tube. It doesn't happen in a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. All these research studies, they're fantastic, but that doesn't compare to the anecdotal evidence that comes from a doctor and a patient, and that patient being treated as an individual. So Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, which I've now published for 13 years, it's in print. It's for doctors, written by doctors, but it does have a cult following of patient readership. It does that every month for 13 years. So I'm proud of that. It's a great thing.
Yeah. No, it's really, really neat. So So you have the Naturopathic Doctor News and Review, and then you also have the Naturopath, correct?
Yeah, so the Naturopath, I had wanted to do something for the patients for a long time, because the cases are written, in a very medical language. They're case reports, and they can be kind of dry. I mean, they're written by doctors for doctors. And I wanted to bring something that would more appeal to the general public. So a couple of years ago, I started the website Naturopath. It's thenatpath.com. And you had asked me, I think, about why the word natural path, because is it like a play on the word naturopath? And it absolutely is. But also, the word pathos for path is the Greek word for suffering and for experience. and the word like pathology, empathy, um, pathetic, they all come from that word pathos. And so I thought that it was also really neat about, the natural path, this natural experience to health. But it is a play on naturopath, and people oftentimes call naturopathic doctors naturopathic doctors. And I thought, why not just kind of accept that?
Yeah, I was wondering which comes first. It's funny, when people first get into all of this and experience healing and whatnot, but they still haven't really done much actual reading, just doing whatever the naturopath tells them. That's a very common thing I'll hear is now I want to be a naturopath, and it's
Oh, right, right. And maybe this is a good time to talk quickly about the difference between a naturopath and a naturopathic doctor, because both are fantastic. A naturopath studies natural methods of healing, herbs, mostly herbs, botanicals, supplements, and things like that. However, they don't they don't go to medical school, so they don't learn any sort of pathology really or differential diagnosis. So, there's places where people will go in some online courses where you'll go to become a naturopath, where it's, I don't know, 6 month, 1 year online program where you study, a little bit about the body systems and a little bit about energy healing and a little bit about nutrition and a little bit about vitamins, supplements, herbs. And I think it's a beautiful thing, but it's not the same as going to a physician who can, look at you, talk to you, assess what your dis-ease state is. Also, to not misdiagnose. I mean, differential diagnosis is a large part of healing when, if you're having pain, in your abdomen, you need to know, is it like your pancreas? Is it your liver? Is it your small intestine? Is it your large intestine? Is it SIBO? Is it an ulcer? So naturopathic physicians are doctors that, as you know, that attend an accredited medical school program. It's just that instead of being trained in medicine, which is like a pharmacological based symptom management approach to managing disease, it's utilizing these principles of naturopathy to bring the body back to a state where your own vital force can heal you. So it's not the supplement they give you, it's not what they do to you, it's how they support the vital force that is already inside of you.
just when you thought you knew it all. I actually had no clue there was just a naturopath as opposed to a naturopathic doctor. I always just, thought naturopath was shorthand. And, I know a lot of people do use it as shorthand for naturopathic doctor, but I didn't know that you could just be a naturopath too. That's some pretty good information right there for people to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And that's actually a topic I did want to get to, just, finding the right naturopathic doctor for you. And then in particular, even, well, I guess I'll ask you a follow-up question about, a naturopathic oncologist versus, a naturopathic doctor to even slim it down a little further. But just in general, do you have any, for people looking for a good naturopathic physician, any tips and tricks, resources, things to keep in mind?
Sure. Well, we actually on Natural Path are building a comprehensive directory, and I'm really excited, but I can't offer it to you yet. So right now, the best place to go is naturopathic.org. They have a directory there. But what you really want to do is look at your doctor's website and see if they have in fact graduated from a CNME accredited naturopathic medical school. It's a Council of Naturopathic Medical Education, and it covers, it's kind of like a board of the schools both in the United States and Canada, so all of North America. And, since naturopathic medicine is less standardized than allopathic or conventional medicine, which is a good thing, because when you go to a medical doctor, they'll treat everyone the same way. You come in with a sore throat, they'll do a swab, give you antibiotics just in case it comes back as strep, and there's these, where a naturopathic doctor has a little bit more freedom, which is what I really like. They will use, their own gifts and tools to treat you as an individual person. One example of that is sometimes they might recommend a specific treatment, but they feel that maybe your body's not strong enough for that yet. So they'll first, give you support to maybe, heal your gut first, or make sure that your adrenal hormones are more in balance before they go to the next step. Again, it's really honoring that vital force. Now, naturopathic physicians, naturopathic medicine itself is already a specialty, right? They have training that no other field of medicine has. Now, there are beautiful fields of medicine, functional, integrative, where they go to a traditional allopathic school and then they take some training at different conventions and stuff to learn about how to incorporate some natural or nutritive healing into modalities into their practice. But the world I'm immersed in is naturopathic, and I would venture to say that there's nothing more comprehensive than a doctoral level of mastery of natural medicine. There's just nothing that can compare. So that being said, the profession has now started to grow into different, subspecialties like pediatrics or oncology. And so what has happened there is it's nothing magic, it's just like in any other field. A group of doctors who have a strong interest. This happened in, let's say, orthopedic medicine and conventional medicine. So all doctors were trained a certain way, and then doctors that have a specific love for a certain type of medicine, let's say orthopedics, they put their knowledge together, create curriculums to make sure all the doctors that want to practice that way follow a certain set of understanding and comprehension of certain things. So naturopathic oncologists are doctors that kind of that subscribe to that or prescribe to that. They are, some doctors got together and formed a board, and they set some kind of standards for cancer care. It is kind of a model of co-treatment as well, co-treating with other forms of doctors. So it's maybe somebody's going through their radiation or chemotherapy or both, and a naturopathic oncologist will support them through that. Some naturopathic oncologists will see you if you choose to not go a conventional route, and some won't. Some only work in, with a conventional, like, medical oncologist. So that's where the beauty of it is you as the patient get to decide. If you're a person that chooses that you want to avoid convention, and that I believe is always a personal choice, then you can see a regular naturopathic doctor or find a naturopathic oncologist that supports that. Or if you just want care, if you want complementary care, that you want to go through your conventional treatment and add naturopathic oncology into it to help your body stay strong, heal quicker from the side effects of other treatments, then that's the way to go too. There's not a real easy way to find the right naturopathic doctor for you. It's just like finding the right spouse, the right employee. You just have to, interview them. You have to look them up and interview them and make sure that they resonate with you, that you feel respected by them, that you like their bedside manner, that there is, because we talked about placebo a minute ago. So that doctor-patient relationship is extremely important, I believe, to patient outcomes. Because if you have a strong, even love for your doctor, and when I say that, I mean that you really feel like that they are in this with you and they are supporting you. People are all beautiful, but not everybody clicks, and that's okay. Different personalities don't. If any time you feel like you're not clicking with your physician, that is a red flag to consider, because this is too precious of a relationship to be in the wrong relationship. You have to really always feel empowered, always feel respected, always feel listened to, always feel like they have to take the time to explain things to you. And if you ever feel different than that, then it's your responsibility to yourself and to the people that love you to find somebody that does support you in those ways. And that's why My most popular ebook on the Nat Path is it time to fire your doctor? Because sometimes you just have to. When I was at the Mayo Clinic and they were telling me that it was all in my head, um, I first started to cry, and then I said, "You're fired." And I left. And had I stayed there, I'd probably, be on pain medications and on disability. And now my life is much more beautiful than that.
Yeah, no, and it's a complete paradigm shift that the sooner people can wrap their minds around, the better. I think, how you say it, being the CEO of your own health really, really sums it up, because you do have the power to get out and make whatever you want to happen. But at the same time, it comes a level of personal responsibility that, it is on you. Nobody else is going to do it for you. That's kind of been our tagline through our whole journey is, no one's going to do it for us. It's
Hmm.
either we get it done, or it doesn't happen.
Right.
Um,
Like
and
you said, steer away from the rocks. I like that a lot because you can put your faith in God, you can put your faith in your doctors, but you still have to, you can get directions from Siri, but you're the one that has to be driving the car, you know. Even if you're in an Uber, you have to tell them where to go. So I think that's important. And if I may say that inside that book, Is It Time to Fire Your Doctor? I do have checklists of, what to bring with you, what kind of questions to ask, what to look for, and what to look out for. So it is a fun resource for people.
very good, very good. Yeah. The trust in God, but row away from the rocks. It's my favorite. My
Yeah.
favorite saying. I was just listening to I forget what he was on, but it was a Mike Adams interview, and he was talking about all these people, be it just a traditional religious person, a Christian praying to God, or more new agey. I'm vibrating at the 10th level, and my chakras are all purple, and whatever, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, you can't pray away the GMOs, and if they're still eating the crap food, and still really, even though they're thinking about all this stuff, practicing unhealthy lifestyle choices, it's yeah, so you kind of have to have the full picture there for sure.
Yeah, and everything we do is a prayer. It's not just when we're quiet and we're thinking or singing or praying. I mean, it's a prayer when we are choosing the food that nature, God intended for us to eat. So we have to look at prayer um, as kind of larger than that because we tend to, in our society, feel like that we can just have actions that aren't healthy and then we can just like wish it away like a prayer. So I like what you said.
Yeah, I wish I knew who actually. I've tried to find where that quote came from, and it's just kind of one of those unknown. But maybe it's better that way. Who knows? Actually, back to your comment about having a bit of a cult following on the patient side on NDNR. I'm really big on doing my own research, because like you said, you're the CEO of your own health, and if you can't find somebody else that has the answer, then maybe it's on you to go at least find out where to get started, to maybe then bring it to a qualified naturopathic professional who can dig into it a little more for you and help you come up with a plan. But I don't know. Do you have any just general tips and tricks, or ways to maybe think about things or approach just doing research for yourself, or even just maybe if you'd want to walk people through, like, how people usually utilize NDNR for themselves on the patient side, just anything like that?
Sure. Well, with regard to NDNR, it's 12 issues a year in print, and then we've put those articles online. So there's 13 years of archives in every aspect of health. So there's men's health, women's health, oncology, pediatrics, geriatrics. So I mean, of course, I'm biased, but I refer to that all the time because instead of just looking up a research study, I'm able to look up a real case of something that really happened between a doctor and a patient. So if one of my kids gets an earache, sometimes I will look that up on NDNR and remind myself, I can either make this garlic and mullein ear oil, or I can pick some up from the dispensary, or there's certain homeopathic remedies I can use, or hydrotherapy. So I do utilize that a lot. But with regard to my approach, this is a little bit esoteric, but I really believe that our intuition is an underutilized gift and reality of who we are. Our intuition is it's real. It's part of being human, and we tend to distract away from it by watching too much TV and getting too much input, commercials and media and what big pharma, big food, everything has to say to us, that we don't listen to our own bodies anymore. Candace Pert, who was one of my favorite researchers, the late Candace Pert, she was a cell biologist and a pharmacologist, and she was the gal that discovered the opiate receptor and found out that we have opiate receptors in our body. And then she also sort of helped that movement that discovered that our like serotonin and norepinephrine and dopamine and oxytocin, all these things that we thought were only in our head are in other parts of our body as well. In our heart creates some of these neurotransmitters, and our gut creates some of these neurotransmitters. And so one of the things that she says is our body is our subconscious mind. And so these peptides of regulation, hormones, and such, she says, are a bridge between our physical self and our consciousness. And if you think about the cycle of life, that, two people deeply love each other creates this chemical reaction. It creates this strong attraction, which creates a physical act that creates this miracle that we still quite don't understand, called fertilization, that leads to a beautiful human being that ends up having its own immune system and its own body and thought processes. How can you argue against what Candace Pert is saying? Our body is our subconscious mind. And so intuition is a way that I have learned through practice to navigate through life and discern what is true from what is false. And more often, much more often than not, I find out what's right and true for me and for my daughters. And I try to teach that to them as well. I mean, we've all been in a room with somebody that we get an uncomfortable feeling about. That's our intuition. We've all, started to eat something that we feel like maybe we shouldn't. We've all approached, a situation in a way that we really feel that we shouldn't. Part of that is our conscious, part of that's our intuition, and part of that's our mind, and it all works together for that. So I try to really sit with how I feel in my body about something and see if it rings true for me. And I'm sorry that that's not a really scientific way, but I think especially for parents listening, I think it's a very powerful way, because we are, we're connected to our children in such amazing ways. I mean, we have DNA from both parents inside of our children, and they really are part of us. And I think that's why, there's such a strong connection. Plus, through the research of heart math, we've learned that, there's a heart field, just like you can measure brain waves, a couple feet from outside of us, they do that. Same with the heart field. And we know that people their heart rate variability can become in sync or out of sync with other people. So when you're around somebody who does not have a healthy heart rate variability, it can actually put yours out of sync. So that's a form of intuition as well. So I think it's really important to remove a lot of the unnecessary distractions and learn to listen more within and pay more attention to what you're feeling and thinking about a food, a supplement, an exercise regime, a relationship, a job. And I think that is the number one way to discern what is right and healthy for you.
Yeah, no, and please, by all means, keep the deeper answers coming because, yeah, I mean, that's exactly kind of what the conclusion that I've come to over the past few years, and I didn't even realize that this is what I was doing until I kind of, thought about it recently. But I've had to let my intuition be the tiebreaker in in so many things, because there's, especially when you start researching cancer, there's, just the fundamental, like, is healthy food sugar good, or should you be going the ketosis route or going the Gerson route? And, it's the past few episodes on this show have been, experts arguing for one side or the other, and they think they're absolutely right. And the other side must, just be making all this up or something. But, I think at the end of the day, a lot of it is, it's going to work for the people who it's supposed to work for, one side or the other. And that can obviously, go into just all the different food choices you eat, or that you make, the grains versus no grains, or, so on and so forth. And then for me particularly, it's been, you start looking into different supplements and or different just natural compounds that you could be potentially taking. And if you were to buy every single compound that potentially had an anti-cancer effect, and even stuff that you found about your particular cancer that you're researching, you'd probably spend 20 grand in a day. So you do have to make some decisions. Go ahead.
And if I can add to that, I was just talking to my friend Heather Paulson, who's a naturopathic oncologist, and she was saying that, your liver can only process so much at a time anyway. So I think she tries to limit people, and, this is different for each patient. So nobody run with that and don't say, oh, I can only take 5 supplements. But she basically says she tries to keep it at about 5 because, your liver has to process these things. And if you have a liver that's too busy, then it's not going to do its other work too. So I like what you said, Ryan, about that being a tiebreaker. I think that's really important, especially for a father and a husband who, is largely kind of charged with kind of sometimes making those final decisions. That I like that a lot, that you go back to your intuition, because that's a deep primal knowledge. It's not just something that's been memorized. It's a deep primal knowledge that has been passed throughout, lifetime, your father, your grandfather, it's the human knowledge that you have in a deeper sense. And I think that what better tiebreaker? I mean, that sure as heck beats flipping a coin.
Yeah, no, it's, I tried to fight it for a long time, actually. Like, I can't just go one way or the other because I feel like it, but at the end of the day, it's, we're in a pretty good place. And, I like to think that Teddy and I have made a couple right decisions along the way. So, it is what it is. You gotta make a decision at some point, and it's, seems to be the best way, to do it, is just go with what you feel best about. And that's probably a reason for it.
And, I had the pleasure of meeting you and your beautiful wife in person. And of course, I noticed that you both had this sort of glow following you everywhere, this like inner light shining out. And that's something that I see most often in people who do listen to their intuition. It's kind of this bright light inside. And the more you use it, it kind of gets a little bit brighter, and it's kind of palpable and also visible. So I was, I felt grateful to be in that when I met you.
Oh, wow. Well, that's certainly a nice thing to hear about yourself. And and no, we were definitely, when we came away from it, we were most glad to have met just a handful of people, and you were right at the top of that list. It was really neat getting to hang out with you. I don't have anything as eloquent to say as what you just did.
That was beautiful.
Before I forget, could you just define heart rate variability for folks, just to give them an idea of what exactly that was that that gets
Yes,
tuned up?
I'll give you my very, I'm not a doctor, so I'll give you like a real layman example. But, we used to think that a healthy heart rate was one that just kind of beat regular and strong and it didn't really change. But what we've discovered is that your heart rate needs to beat variably in response to your internal and external environment. So when something shocks you or frightens you, or you maybe have some intuition, your heart rate might beat a little bit faster. When you exercise, of course, is kind of a silly example, but your heart rate variability kind of moves in tune with what your body's needs are, and it creates this state of coherence where your brain waves and your digestion and all of your cells are sort of in harmony in this nice kind of sine wave like pattern. Um, and it's interesting because it's not coming again from just a constant. If it was just to be constantly, then you're not meeting all your metabolic needs, your nutritive needs, your energy needs, your cellular respiration and such. So heart rate variability, the better your heart rate variability is, the more you're able to respond. Your body is more responsive to the environment, and that helps you stay healthy. And it can be affected by emotions as well. So that state of coherence is sensed from person to person without really a thinking knowledge of it. But again, it's more of that intuitive knowledge of it. It's like your heart coherence, that energy that comes off, can kind of feel that from something else. And when people love each other, like in a family environment, it's much more in tune and really kind of communicates to each other. And this is science. This is not woo-woo at all. This is science that's studied in a lab.
Well, yeah, you had a whole summit on what was it, the Heart Revolution?
Yes, the heartrevolution.org was my first summit. Was the Natural Cancer Prevention Summit, the cancersummit.com. And then my next was the Heart Revolution, the heartrevolution.org. And I chose cancer and heart disease not because, I never had cancer, but just the rates of cancer changing. I grew up when I was a little girl. I knew one person that had cancer ever, who was like a distant cousin, until I was probably, in my 20s. And then I knew several families touched by it. And now look where we are. So with it being the, one of the leading causes of death, I wanted to cover that because I came across a journal article that was published in the Journal of Pharmaceutical Research that states cancer, 90 to 95% of cancers are preventable and environmental. And that number was so big that people didn't even believe me when I told them. So I have emailed that link to so many people. And it's not one study, it is a research review of many studies. So I didn't want to talk about cancer treatments. I wanted to talk about cancer prevention. So we did. Then the Heart Revolution was, the leading cause of death in men and women is heart, cardiovascular disease. And so I thought to myself, the number one cause of death, of early death in women and men is heart disease, then we're all dying of broken hearts, literally. Now, maybe not in the romantic sense, but in the literal sense. So I decided to cover heart health from all perspectives. So nutritional, just cardiovascular, just science, but also emotional, grief, heartache, loss, and things like that. That was a beautiful experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you talk about tying the woo woo back to science, I mean, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but there are like apps people can get on their phone and kind of hook up some sort of heart rate monitor and actually see how different things affect their heart rate variability, and even kind of reverse engineer and train it back into yourself, if I'm not mistaken, right?
You can do that. This is not going to be popular, maybe. I'm not a huge fan of apps because I like to reduce my EMF exposure. So you'll never find me wearing one of those things that track. But so yes, you can. But also, what you can do, since your heart rate variability is something that happens inside of you, and your intuition is something that happens inside of you, you can just get to know yourself better. And you'll know that your heart rate variability and your heart coherence, you'll know it because you'll know it. You'll feel it. You'll feel calm. You'll feel energetic. You'll feel like you're responsive. And I just want people to if you need an app or you think it's fun, do it. But I want people to get to know themselves, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely something I've been trying to be more mindful, if you want to use the word, of the past, especially the past few months, maybe 3 to 6 months. I've really been getting into exactly that, just trying to be more present in the moment, and all that stuff. And I find the more I get into it, the naturally the better decisions I make. And what do you know? I have the best days when I'm really trying to be present in the moment, and all that stuff. So it's yeah. I think at the end of the day, like I was starting to talk about earlier, you can get so wrapped up in this supplement or that supplement, or keto or Gerson or whatever. But the more you can just take a step back.
And can I add to that, Ryan, that people also get so caught up in like, okay, I want to be more spiritual, so I need to do this yoga, or I need to buy these crystals, or I need to get with this spiritual teacher, or I need to go to Bali. But you know what? Spirituality is already also in you. So, it can be a beautiful experience of spirituality to be preparing a meal for your family. If you're really there in the moment, you're smelling the onion as you're slicing it, you're watching your kids do cartwheels in the family room, you're grateful for that moment. That is just as much a spiritual experience as traveling to Bali and studying under some master. I think we try too hard to get that sticky and make it something that's almost harder to achieve, or we wear it like a badge, like I do yoga sometimes, but once you walk into a studio, everybody kind of gets this certain stance and they wear certain kind of clothes and they say namaste, and they never do that in their real life anywhere else. So I think really spirituality is, opening a door for somebody that's carrying about to drop their bag of groceries, or it's smiling at somebody from across a room just because you just have this little moment of like, hey, we're human and we're in this together. I think that spirituality doesn't have to be so hard or so mysterious. I think that it's just really, like you said, being mindful and being bodyful, being not only in your mind, but being in your body, because your body is what you use to interact with others and with your environment. And that is so spiritual.
Yeah, no, that's a very interesting thing to keep in mind. And, again, right back to kind of where I'm at with that, because at first it was very, I don't know, like I listened to a lot of Tim Ferriss, and he's really big on, the tips and tricks and the habits and routines of successful people. And so, that's what I must need to meditate and get this app on my phone, and all this, and it still wasn't really clicking for me, but then kind of hard to even put into words, but when you just kind of take a step back and just decide to be whatever it is you're looking for, that's all you really need sometimes.
And I think it's good to take all that with a grain of salt, because now I'm not talking about Tim Ferriss, but I do know an individual who has a really big following, kind of spiritual, motivating type thing. And it's a beautiful brand and helps a lot of people. But in their real life, they're in a bad place. They're in pain, then they're not happy. And I think that it's important to just understand that, like, you don't need a guru. It's good to listen to other people, but you have to ultimately not so much get everything that they recommend and do everything that they say to do. You have to just do what feels right for you.
I think on this show now, people have made references to top health gurus not living healthy lives, top longevity gurus. There's no way they're going to live very long. And now I'm dying to know who all these people are. But,
It doesn't matter. It only matters.
Well, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's just like you said, it's just keeping in mind the fact that you do have to take everything with a grain of salt. And nobody has all the exact answers for your life. You have the exact answers for your life, and it's just kind of about finding them. And all of these people you come across along the way are going to help you, I guess, remind you of things you might have forgotten, to use whatever terminology I'm going for there is. But yeah, no, it's at the end of the day, it all comes back to you.
My good friend and naturopathic physician, Dr. Steve Massey, just told me this a couple weeks ago at a conference. He said you spell guru Guru, like Guru. So that is your guru, you.
You are your guru.
Guru.
I like it. Before we run out of time, I definitely, I've heard you talk about the tenets of naturopathic healing, naturopathic medicine, naturopathy. You can correct me on whatever the correct phrase is there, but yeah, I'd love to dive into those with you, because I think it's so good, kind of like we're talking about here, just a general framework for people to keep their mind on when they're trying to, figure out how to heal or get well or get healthy or whatever. I think these are some real good, just some real good tenets to have in mind.
Yeah, so the tenets of naturopathic medicine are real core tenets of naturopathy and what students of naturopathic medicine and doctors practice and learn. And let's talk about them. Yeah, so it's really what sets it apart from other fields of medicine. So let's start with first, do no harm, which is actually in the Hippocratic Oath that all physicians take. But first, do no harm in naturopathic medicine means really you do the least forceful remedy for the patient. You don't start off, naturopathic doctors do sometimes prescribe chemical medications, pharmaceutical medications, but it's usually never right from the start. They want to make sure that the body is strong enough. So if you can't just give somebody a strong pharmaceutical if the body is just totally weak and the vital force is low. So first, do no harm means really honor where the body is and strengthen it, and don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. So they don't look at it as some conventional medicine is like, well, we're going to accomplish this, even though we're going to destroy this system and these cells. It's really different than that. So first, do no harm is really important. And then from a patient perspective, you turn that within, and you don't harm yourself. You make choices that don't harm yourself. So whether it's the body products you use, or whether you're lighting a pure beeswax candle or a scented candle, or if it's a relationship that's difficult, you turn away from what's going to harm you, because your body is your temple. So I love that one. The healing power of nature, vis medicatrix naturae. This is what really is about honoring the vital force, that vital force within. Now, science has tried to look at what is the smallest denominator of life, right? So we talked about cells and protons and electrons and DNA, but really the further and further we go, and we call it energy because we don't know what else to call it, there's just nothing there, and that nothing is everything, and that nothing is life, that cannot be explained because it can only be experienced. And I call it love. Right, so that's my term for it. So the healing power of nature is just this idea that, we know that the electrons from the earth give our bodies the negative charge that they need for cells to be healthy. We know the sun helps create the easy water, the fourth phase of water in our cells that creates almost like this battery and can store information, and nature is all around us to support us. It's honoring our senses, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, our sense of sight. These are all important to take in information from the world around us. And so the healing power of nature. For instance, I think we don't talk about our sense of smell enough. Our sense of smell is really important in choosing a mate because we smell each other's pheromones that have to do with the immune response we have, which has to do with DNA and genetic compatibility. And we mess that up by wearing cologne, wearing perfume, having scented candles and air fresheners everywhere. So we could talk so long on just the healing power of nature, but that is something that naturopathic doctors really, really value and practice. Then there is Tole Totem, treat the whole person. And that means we don't look at just the brain for headaches. We don't look at just the ovaries for infertility. They look at how each system is interdependent and look at the mind, body, spirit, relationships, patterns, habits of each individual, to look at each person. So you can have 15 patients with sore throat, and they all will have a different manifestation and a different way that needs to be treated. Somebody might have it because their adrenal hormones are too low and they're not fighting off infections. Somebody else might have it because they have gut dysbiosis. So there's just treating the whole person is the only way to really offer patient-centered care. Tole Kazan is treat the root cause. So this is talked about a lot now in different types of alternative medicine, but it really started with naturopathic medicine. And it's like but when it goes deeper to say, remove the obstacles to cure, which I think is so fascinating. Remove the obstacles to cure. So again, it doesn't look as, well, you can't heal. It looks at what is in the way of your healing. So instead of just giving you something like a prescription or an infusion, what do we need to get out of the way so your body can do what it was born and designed to do? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna. Yeah, it's funny that you put that terminology on it. I just sent an email out to our email list this morning, and I was actually talking about the interview we just released with a guy named Terry Tillert. But I quoted him in the interview in my email, and he made the analogy that. Because we were talking about just making your home into a healing home and getting rid of your off-gassing mattress and getting a water filter and air filter and then also just, people get so wrapped up in all the different cancer, supplements and whatnot, but are you really focusing on just detoxing and really making sure your body is pristine and healing the gut and just getting, all systems running at 100%. And he made the analogy that it's like, if I put a big boulder in front of you and told you to push it up the hill, but oh wait, I'm gonna stack on this additional weight on top of it, and I'm gonna put a really heavy backpack on you, and I'm going to tie something around your leg, and now all of a sudden it's impossible. But on the flip side, if we just start taking away all these obstacles to healing, all the the additional environmental toxins and negative thoughts, and just making sure you are tuned up at 100%, then all of a sudden I'm taking all those things off and maybe bringing in a couple extra guys to help you and that sort of thing. And I thought that was that was a really neat way to look at it that I hadn't necessarily grasped before, was that there are either obstacles that you're still wrestling with or you're not. Yeah.
I'll look forward to listening to that episode because detoxification is so popular right now, but really your body and your cells are constantly detoxifying. You've got your organs of unction. I won't spend too much time because I know we're running out of it, but it's like your kidneys, your hair, I'm sorry, your skin, your breath, and your uro tract. That's ways your body's constantly detoxifying. Breath. So when we clog up, by wearing deodorant under our antiperspirant under our arms, or clogging up our breath by wearing the perfumes or breathing in, toxic chemicals and scented candles and stuff, by drinking soda that isn't good for our kidneys, we're blocking our body's natural ways to detox, constantly bringing in nutrients, so constantly getting rid of waste. So before somebody thinks about like, oh, I'm going to go buy these juices and do a detox, you need to talk to your naturopathic doctor and make sure your phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways are working, because you can take all the detoxification supplements or juices in the world, and if your body isn't excreting the toxins, they're going to build up. So that's really important.
Now you just touched on excuse me, a technical term that I must clarify. Could you just go into phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification pathways? And yeah, obviously you could take up a whole episode on it, but
yeah, it's really too complicated to really be able to go into, but it's like you've got your kidneys and your liver, each detoxify different things. And if you don't have those systems really primed, and if the hormones and enzymes and stuff, if you don't have the right amount of bile and hydrochloric acid in your gut, then that means that your body isn't going to break things down enough to excrete them. I'm not trying to brush it off, but I can send you some links to some articles that explain it that you could post.
We'll throw them up in the show notes, and
okay.
I actually write like a full blown summary article to every interview. So yeah, I'll weave them in there. But I guess at the end of the day, it's something your doctor should probably be asking about, and if he's not, then maybe it's time to find a new one, or remind him that he should be asking about those things. Didn't mean to throw you off track.
No. I think it's great, and I will send those to you, because it's important. Even like before you go on a weight loss program, your body dumps a lot of toxins into its system when you burn fat, and so if you really have a lot of weight to lose, it's good to do the right kind of detox and make sure those pathways are clear also. So then there is docere, which is the root of the word doctor, and it means to teach. So the word doctor means to teach. So if your doctor is not teaching you, then they're in malpractice, really. So that's another clue to find a doctor. Naturopathic doctors take that very seriously. And the way that I turn it towards a patient perspective is that you have to be constantly learning about your body. You have to be constantly, again, the CEO of your own. You should be able to write the manual for your own body. And of course, we always have things to learn from each other. Nobody can know everything, but you should always be so curious about the hows and whys of your body. And then the last one is prevenir. Prevention is the best cure. So in our Western society, instead of looking at, how can we prevent, we're always looking at how to cure more cancer instead of how to have less cancer to treat. So there's nothing that can beat prevention. So sometimes, I'm sure you get this too, Ryan, sometimes they'll be like, well, everything causes cancer. We're all going to die.
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, don't you want to enjoy your life while you're living it? Don't you want to feel good? Like, do you want to be the person you live to 95, but you're carrying an oxygen tank behind you? So it feels good to live right.
Yeah. And I mean, on the one hand, yes, in air quotes, everything causes cancer. But on the other hand, it's no, just all the bad stuff causes cancer. And it's, we've become pretty proficient at removing all that stuff and avoiding it going forward. And now it's not like we're, giving, I don't even feel like I'm making some kind of hard choice on a daily basis. It's just, it's how we live. It's, it's just something that I hope people can get their minds wrapped around. And I know the folks that are listening to this show probably do. So that's
beautiful.
Yeah.
This is really incredible work that you're doing. And, as parents of a child who's been through probably the most incredible nightmare that a parent can face, I think it's really brave to put yourself out there to help other people. That, Ryan, is a spiritual practice. Not going to a mountain in Tibet and fasting and with some guru. That is a spiritual practice right there. So I appreciate that about you and your wife.
Well, on the selfish side, especially, now that we have the podcast going, it's a neat excuse to get to pick interesting folks' brains like yours. So it's been working out for everybody, I suppose.
Yeah. Great.
Well, Razi, I think, we're about out of time, but one, thank you so much for coming on in this
Thank you.
This conversation was very refreshing. I think I alluded to the past several, maybe since the show's inception, it's been, kind of one expert arguing for a specific approach, all very science-based and so on. And this, taking a step back with you has been a breath of fresh air, and I think it's something the show really needed. So this was great. Yeah, would you, for folks that would like to know more about everything you're up to, where would you point them for all things Razi Berry?
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook, Razi Berry. That is my real name, by the way. My parents have sense of humor. I have the natpath.com, which is the resource for patients. And then ndnr.com, Naturopathic Doctor News and Review. And I'd like to say I found, just for something to kind of feed my spirit, I founded a fun Facebook group called Love is Medicine. It's a closed group, but if anyone listening likes to explore how love, be it self-love, love of family, love of your spouse, how love relates to healing, because there's a lot of science there too, and we talk about just a lot of fun topics. So you can also find me on Facebook at Love is Medicine.
I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yeah, you were telling me about that before we started recording, and I for one will certainly be joining right after we get off the call here, because
you're welcome to join us.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. That sounds like a pretty neat continuation of this conversation. So I would encourage everyone to hop on there. With that, Razi, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ryan. Have a great day, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Indeed. How did you like that? I really hope listening to Razi was as refreshing for you as it was for me, both while I was doing the interview and going over it. I really enjoyed that conversation. Like I said to Razi probably too many times throughout the interview, I'm not the best spokesman for this more esoteric or woo-woo, as I've been joking with Razi, type of stuff, but I do fully realize the value of it and the need to spend a whole lot more time than I'm sure most of us do on it. I really hope you got some great information out of this episode with Razi. If you did, be sure to share it out with all of your friends so they can get the same healing info at mykidcurescancer.com/Razi-Berry. And Razi is spelled R-A-Z-I, Berry, B-E-R-R-Y. And also while you're there, you can read the full summary article I put together along with our thoughts on how this information relates to childhood cancer. You can find that in the summary of every article we do relating to these shows. Lord willing, we'll see you here next week with Audra and Justin Wilford of the Max Love Project, where we'll be kicking off Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, September, with a bang. This was an incredible conversation that I'm really excited to bring you guys, especially all the parents listening, but for all the adult patients and caregivers, I promise there's a lot in there for you too. Music was provided by the Fat Rat and the Tasty Network, and all production and editing and so on was done by my wonderful, wonderful wife, Teddy. This is Ryan Sternagel signing out for now. God bless and Godspeed.